There is 5 ways you can improve your table tennis serve. First step is having the correct grip. This is the pinch grip. This grip allows for a lot more spin when serving, as it allows you to move your wrist freely. Unlike if you had a grip like a normal backhand grip, this prevents your wrist like so. To get into this grip correctly, hold your bat like you would for a forehanded backhand, then curl your fingers behind the bat like so, whilst keeping your thumb in pretty much the same position on top of the bat, on the forehand side. That way, you can move the bat freely, snap your wrist, and ultimately put a lot more spin on the ball. Make sure you grip the bat firmly between your thumb and pointer finger. That will enable you to be able to actually whip the bat like you're flicking it under the ball, on the side of the ball. Doesn't matter, whatever spin you're putting on, make sure you're gripping predominantly in the pointer finger and the thumb. The rest of your fingers can just rest behind in support. Step 2 is flicking your wrist. This step is crucial to improve your table tennis serve, as it allows you to put the most spin on the ball. A massive mistake beginner players make is trying to spin the ball using their whole arm. This is very inefficient, as you can just use your wrist and get a lot more power, and a lot more speed, and a lot more spin. Moving with your whole arm is also slower. It doesn't put the most spin. Flicking your wrist, on the other hand, is a lot quicker and a lot faster. Hit the ball at maximum speed and ultimately get the most spin. To flick your wrist, you want to have the pinch grip like stated in step 1, and just snap your wrist like so, as quick and as fast as possible under the ball. Put on spin, you want to brush the ball and flick your wrist. Flicking your wrist also allows for you to do small movements that are concealed and hard for the opponent to see. So you can vary spin, change spin, add misdirection, all in your wrist. Whereas if you use your arm, it's a lot more obvious for your opponent what type of spin you're putting on. For example, very easy to see that I'm putting side spin on the ball because I'm using my whole arm. It's a lot more obvious for your opponent to see what spin you're putting on. If I just use my wrist and flick my wrist to put on side spin, it's a lot less obvious. You want to extend your wrist as far as possible that way and snap as quickly as you can. And to put on spin, you want to brush the ball. Brushing the ball and flicking your wrist makes the perfect combination to put the most spin on your serve. Depending on the spin, you want to brush underneath the ball, on the side of the ball, on top of the ball. But you don't want to hit the ball hard. Just want to brush slightly. Step 3 involves timing, and when you actually hit the ball, make contact and serve. You want to hit the ball low to the table. This will ultimately decrease the bounce, making it a better serve and a harder serve for your opponent to return. This involves throwing up the ball, obviously regulation height, and letting it drop. A lot of beginner players make the mistake of hitting the ball high up. This increases the bounce of the ball, making it obviously a worse serve to be high to the net, easy for your opponent to smash. You want to wait for the ball to drop, hitting the ball low to the table, which will decrease the bounce, making it a shorter serve and a harder serve for your opponent to return. This will lead to your opponent pushing the ball if it's a backspin or side spin serve, which will mean you'll be able to return it and control the rally. Waiting for the ball to drop will also increase power the ball has when it hits your racket. If you wait for the ball to drop, the ball will hit your racket with more speed, which means it will actually have more spin when it hits your racket. More power coming onto your racket equals more spin. This is why you'll see a lot of pro players throwing the ball pretty high, because they want to actually get more spin on their racket and more of a reaction when the ball hits the rubber. Try and wait for the ball to at least drop around 10 to 15 centimeters off the table. You can practice this by throwing it up, catching, and understanding the right time to hit the ball. As you can see by this example I'll do right now, it's pretty easy to tell the difference between the spin, hit the ball low to the table, and when you don't let it drop and you hit it high. I let the ball drop, had a lot more spin, and obviously it was low to the table, and it didn't even reach the end of the table because it had enough spin to go off to the side. This is what happens when I hit the ball high to the table. I'll still flick my wrist, but there'll be less power, less spin, and obviously way more of a bounce. Still went off the side of the table, but your opponent will be able to smash that quite easily. Alright, step 4 involves misdirection. This is a great step to improve your serve, and you can add a lot of depth, a lot of tricky stuff to confuse your opponent and ultimately win the rally. Misdirection can occur in multiple ways during your serve. Basically, it happens after you've actually hit the ball to make your serve, and you swing in the opposite direction to confuse your opponent. You want your opponent to think that you put on a different spin than you actually have, makes your serve a lot more trickier. This can happen in a multitude of ways. Often, it happens in the side spin serve, as you can flick your wrist easily in the opposite direction. It can happen in this serve as well, where you put topspin on the ball, but it looks like you put on backspin after you cut underneath. They push the ball because it looks like it's backspin. The ball goes flying because you actually put on topspin. So misdirection can occur in a lot of different ways, and it's a great way to make your serve even more trickier. Here's a few examples of misdirection. The first is in a side spin serve. Throw the ball up, come down. After making contact with the ball low to the table, you flick your wrist in the opposite direction. Practice this. You can just hit the ball like this and then flick your wrist in the opposite direction immediately afterwards. Basically, your opponent is going to think you've either done a reverse pendulum serve or the pendulum serve. They won't know which one because the movement is so quick and sudden. You have an even higher chance of winning the point just off the serve. Another example is doing this serve, which is a tomahawk variant. Topspin on the ball and then cutting underneath as you misdirection. This works very well as you can barely see the topspin movement because it's just touching the ball. You're barely even going up to make the topspin, just touching the ball, which automatically creates the topspin. Make contact, cut underneath. A lot of people call this the snake serve. The fifth and final step involves placement. You want to vary where you place your serve. This will make it trickier for your opponent to predict where you're going to serve, and ultimately they'll find it harder because they're not going to know where you're going to serve. You might serve somewhere where you haven't before and surprise them. Either way, it's going to increase your chance of winning the rally. Doesn't matter what type of serve it is, you want to vary serving down the line or serving across court. Placement is also really important with the width of the table. You want to serve, if it's backspin or side spin, close to the net. This will make it harder for them to attack it and do a winning ball. So they're going to have to push and do a defensive shot if it's close to the net. This will give you the chance to attack and control the rally. If it's a topspin serve or a fast serve, then you maybe want to do it longer to the table. So they have less chance to react and do a defensive topspin shot, and then you can attack and win the rally. If it's a quick surprise topspin ball, then maybe go down the line or go across the court. So you want to keep placement in mind to surprise your opponent, or if you want to control the rally. Serve in the third closest to the net, make them push it back, then you can attack. Key thing to remember with placement is when you serve down the line, your opponent is more often than not going to return diagonally. This is a good thing to keep in mind because if you serve down the line, they'll push and you'll be able to attack on your forehand. This is something I keep in mind when I'm playing games. I'm going to add side spin, backspin down the line. Hopefully they're going to push it to my forehand. It will have a little bit of side spin on it and I'll be able to loop it. For placement, you can also add trickier serves, like serving in this pocket here, which is hard for your opponent to read. You can always throw in a surprise topspin serve for your placement and go along the table as a quick topspin serve. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching the video. If you want to watch a snake tutorial on the snake shot, then click right here. If not, I hope you enjoyed. Please subscribe for more videos like this. I'll see you in the next one.